Imagine you're visiting the zoo, watching a majestic lion or tiger prowling around its enclosure. You might think feeding such a powerful predator must be a challenge, right? Surprisingly, when it comes to logistics and costs, feeding carnivores like lions and tigers is actually far simpler and cheaper than feeding herbivores. Why? Herbivores, despite their peaceful image, have highly specialized diets that often require specific plants, which zoos must source, import, and maintain. Meanwhile, carnivores can thrive on bulk meat, making their diets much less complicated. Let's take a closer look at why feeding herbivores presents unique challenges for zoos, and why feeding carnivores, despite their fearsome appearance, is much easier. Feeding herbivores isn't as simple as providing a pile of grass or leaves. These animals often have highly specialized diets that require specific plants, many of which are native to their natural habitats and can't be found just anywhere. In the wild, herbivores like giraffes, elephants, and pandas graze on plants that have evolved alongside them, making these plants perfectly suited to their digestive systems. But in a zoo setting, replicating these diets can be a logistical nightmare. Zoos need to tackle a few key challenges when it comes to feeding their herbivores. They must source specific plants that don't naturally grow in the zoo's location, provide large quantities of food to meet the animals' needs, and ensure that their herbivores get a variety of plants to maintain proper health. For example, an elephant can consume up to 300 pounds of food a day, and a giraffe needs a constant supply of fresh leaves and browse to stay healthy. Ensuring that herbivores receive a diverse range of plants, much like they would in the wild, adds another layer of complexity to the process. One of the biggest hurdles zoos face is the need to import plants that aren't native to their local climate. For instance, pandas rely almost exclusively on bamboo, a plant that grows in specific regions like parts of China. Zoos outside of these regions must either grow bamboo in controlled conditions, which is expensive and difficult, or import it from far away, which can quickly drive up costs. Similarly, giraffes need access to browse, leaves and twigs from trees, that often aren't native to the zoo's region, forcing zoos to import these plants or cultivate them on site. The costs associated with importing or growing specialized plants are significant. Zoos might need to build greenhouses, hire specialized staff to manage the plants, and arrange logistics to ship and store perishable plant material. Unlike feeding carnivores, whose diets can be more easily sourced, herbivores' food demands involve much higher price tags due to these logistical requirements. On the other hand, feeding carnivores is far simpler and more cost-effective. Whether it's lions, tigers, or wolves, carnivores in zoos aren't picky about the source of their meat. They can eat a variety of meats, from beef to chicken, and their dietary needs are relatively easy to meet. Zoos can purchase bulk meat from local suppliers or wholesalers, making it much easier to store and transport compared to fresh plants. Carnivores don't require exotic dietary items to be imported from across the globe. Their food is typically sourced locally or regionally, which keeps costs lower and logistics simpler. In addition, carnivores require much less food volume than herbivores. A lion might eat 10 to 15 pounds of meat a day, while an elephant requires hundreds of pounds of plant material. This difference in volume means less storage, handling, and overall effort when it comes to feeding carnivores. One of the reasons feeding carnivores is more economical is that meat is calorie-dense. Carnivores require fewer calories overall because meat provides high concentrations of proteins and fats, which deliver more energy per pound compared to plants. Herbivores, on the other hand, must consume massive quantities of food because plants are much lower in calories. This makes feeding herbivores a labor-intensive process, as zoos need to provide vast amounts of food to meet their caloric needs. Between the need for specialized plants, the larger volumes of food required, and the logistics of sourcing and importing these plants, it's easy to see why herbivores are much more expensive to feed than carnivores. Feeding an elephant or giraffe is not as simple as placing a pile of food in their enclosure. Zoos must carefully plan and manage the process, ensuring that the animals receive the right type of food in the right amounts, all while coordinating horticulture, transportation, and staffing to meet the dietary needs of these animals. By contrast, feeding carnivores is a relatively streamlined process. Zoos can purchase large quantities of meat, store it for long periods, and efficiently distribute it to their carnivorous residents. The reduced labor, combined with the ease of sourcing local meat, makes feeding carnivores a much simpler and cheaper task. So, while it might seem like feeding a panda or giraffe would be straightforward, just give them plants. The reality is far more complex. The specialized diets of herbivores, coupled with the need for large quantities of food and often imported plants, make feeding these animals one of the most significant logistical challenges for zoos. Carnivores, on the other hand, are much easier to care for when it comes to food. Their ability to eat a variety of bulk meats, along with the smaller amounts they require, makes feeding them more cost-effective and less complicated. In conclusion, the hidden costs of feeding herbivores go beyond what most people might imagine. From sourcing specific plants to managing complex logistics, zoos face numerous challenges when it comes to providing for their herbivorous residents. Meanwhile, feeding carnivores is a far simpler and more streamlined process, thanks to their flexible diets and lower food volumes. The next time you visit a zoo, take a moment to appreciate the incredible effort that goes into feeding its residents. While the lions and tigers may captivate you with their strength, it's the giraffes and elephants whose diets demand the real logistical feats behind the scenes. If you enjoyed learning about the fascinating differences in feeding zoo animals, consider sharing this video and subscribing for more engaging content on wildlife, nature, and the hidden complexities behind everyday things.